Stabbings, firebombs, knife attacks and murder. These are just a few of the consistent violent attacks orchestrated by these two men as part of a 20-year-long feud between two families. The Daniels, who dominated Glasgow's underworld, particularly the north side, made their money and gained power through drug trafficking, violence and intimidation, and money laundering. Led by Jaime Daniel, who was born into the slums of post-war Glasgow in 1957. Jamie's dad dies when he is 10, leaving his family to start anew in Postle Park. It was at this time that Jaime got a knack for crime, such as shoplifting, breaking and entering, and petty theft, which he excelled at. The real turning point for Jaime was when himself, along with his brother and his brother's mates, were stealing copper wire from an abandoned building when an off-duty police officer spotted them and confronted them. The group beat the officer and left him for dead. From this point onwards, Jamie's future was set in stone. He continued selling scrap metal up until the 1980s when heroin was introduced majorly. Jamie's reputation had become notorious in the area and he had bigger ambitions, more money. Now 31, Jaime moves from scrap metal to drugs, specifically heroin. After a few years in the business, Jaime establishes a connection with a Scottish Pakistani family who were smuggling drugs. This link allowed Jaime to buy drugs at a better price and larger quantities, which assisted in him forming links with gangs around the UK. Soon he was making millions right under the nose of Police Scotland, who hardly even knew his name. This aligns with his reputation of being steps ahead of the police and very surveillance aware. The Daniel clan had a perfect untouched system for many years. This would explode after the start of the new millennia. With Glasgow's drug epidemic at its peak, many new and old underworld figures had their sights on the crown. August 2001 would contain an event that would shape Glasgow's underworld and future for decades to come. A house party taking place in Glasgow's north side would be ground zero. The house was a stash spot for the Daniels clan until two gatecrashers stumbled upon a 20k stash of cocaine and slipped out unnoticed with the stash. The next day, Daniel clan members took notice of this and immediately started the hunt, but with no luck. Who was responsible for this? A man cropped up taking credit for the theft, Eddie Lyons Sr. from Milton, who made his money through counterfeit VHS tapes and had a reputation for being violent. He had recently been given control of the Milton Community Centre that he used for a base for his criminal activities. Eddie Lyons Sr. and his family had progressed up the ladder, much to the Daniels' dislike. Revenge is imminent. Introducing Kevin Gerbil Carroll, Jamie's most trusted enforcer, whose signature move was dubbed alien abductions, where Carroll would kidnap street dealers and brutally torture them. The name alien abduction would come from the victim waking up in the street and having no information to tell the police. Gerbil is dispatched and is on the hunt for the stolen stash. Within hours, the Lyons base would be smashed up and set on fire. This sparked up-and-comer Stephen Lyons to take over from his father, and by the time 2003 rolls around, Stephen wants to expand, and he does successfully, making more money and more enemies. This enraged Jaime Daniel, who was jealous of the money they were making and feared his position of kingpin. This would further the rivalry the Daniels and Lyons clan had, turning it into a bloody feud. January 2003 would set the precedent for the tit-for-tat war. Taking place in the Milton area of Glasgow, Johnny Lyons, aged 38, is ambushed, narrowly missing a bullet to the head from a gunman who then shot him in the leg. Johnny lies thinking he has been killed, when he realised his wallet that was in his pocket had taken the brunt of the bullet. £800 in cash was all that stood in between the bullet and potentially Johnny's life. This was a declaration of war. Fast forward to November 2006 in Bishopbriggs, Glasgow. Kevin Gerbil Carroll has a queer mission that some would say is crossing the line. Every year, Eddie Lyons Sr. and his family visit the grave of his son, Gary Lyons, who passed away in 1991 due to leukemia at aged 8. On this occasion in 2006, the Lyons family had arrived at the grave site to find it had been desecrated and ripped up with tyre marks. This cranked up an already heated feud, and Gerbil had a target on his back. Within the same month, Gerbil and his close associate Ross Sherlock were ambushed while sitting in a car. A gunman approached and opened fire, hitting Carroll in the stomach from close range and striking Ross in the legs. The pair stumbled to a nearby door, shouting for help. Luckily, the homeowner answered and happened to be a registered nurse, who then tended to the wounds, reportedly saving their lives. Both men were then taken to hospital, where they lay unconscious. Following this shooting, the police cracked down on organised crime, and the Lyons suffered numerous cash and drug seizures alongside arrested soldiers. The Daniels are also on Police Scotland's radar, and by using stolen weapons from a disused army barracks, they are preparing for something big. December 2006, Lamb Hill, Glasgow. Gerbil's carrying out his procedure of shaving his body and head hair to leave as little DNA as possible at the scene. After he carries out the crime, he douses his body in diesel to remove any residue. But what was he preparing for? Eddie Lyons Sr. is holding a meeting at his uncle's garage in Lamb Hill. Two men in masks walk in and open fire. Mayhem erupts. Over in 3 minutes, the gunmen make an escape, leaving behind Stephen Lyons, shot in the leg, and Michael Lyons, aged 21, shot dead.
A gangster movie after two masked gunmen shot a man dead and wounded two others.
This would be a key turning point for the police, as Michael Lyons was an innocent member of the family who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. This forced police to take control. The Daniels' target was head of the family, Stephen Lyons, but this murder brought the feud into the public eye, and the Lyons were immediately evicted from their base of operations centre in Milton. Stephen Lyons flees to Spain in fear for his life. Retaliation is imminent, and Gerbil is directly in the crosshairs. The Lyons had an individual in the police that was passing information about Gerbil to the Lyons. This would lead us to January 2010 in Rob Royston, Glasgow. This started off as a normal day in the Asda car park, families buying shopping and couples just passing through, but would ultimately be the place for an assassination, with witnesses stating that they thought they were caught up in another Dunblane massacre. As Gerbil climbed into the back of his 3-door Audi A3 after meeting with another dealer, a car pulls up and two masked gunmen jump out. The two men in the front of the Audi ran away, leaving Gerbil trapped in the back seat. Seeing these gunmen, realising his fate, Gerbil put the car manual over his face and is shot 5 times, with one through the head. He lies lifeless. A total of 13 bullets were found, which would lead police to William Patterson, who was jailed for life for orchestrating the murder. Ross Monaghan stood trial but was acquitted of the crime. A very powerful message was sent. The most feared and violent enforcer in the city is now in the past. The Daniels empire is now under serious threat. 1 month after Gerbil's death, Jaime Daniel was arrested for road rage after assaulting a student. This was a clear indication that Jaime was losing his grip. He received a 12-month prison sentence. No notable gangland disputes took place until September 2015, when Ross Sherlock was walking towards his car when he noticed a person in a fluorescent coat about 10 feet in front of him. Ross had just picked his daughter up from school when the man pulled a gun out. After seeing this, Ross threw his golf umbrella at him, but was shot in the arm, fracturing it, and his side was grazed by the bullet also. Upon investigation, the police found a burnt-out Volkswagen Golf in Wood Lane, Bishopbriggs, which led them to William Burns, 56, and Alexander Porter, 48. Both men were cleared of the crime. The next attack wouldn't come until November 2016, when Ewan Johnson pulled up to a set of traffic lights on Shields and Scotland Street around 11:40 p.m. Sat in his Audi RS4, an Audi Q5 pulled up alongside him. 3 shots rang out, hitting Ewan in the head twice, with one going through his brain. Ewan was taken to hospital, where he later passed away. The scene that was left was horrific. The perpetrator, 33-year-old David Scott, who was charged and sentenced to 22 years in prison for executing Ewan. Ewan was awaiting trial at Glasgow's High Court on charges of drug dealing involving £640,000 worth of heroin. This was the same year that Jaime Daniel, the clan's leader, died of cancer. The heat was starting to mount up, which was clearly shown in the next attack. May 2017. Stephen Bonzo Daniel is leaving a Rangers football match and stepped foot into his Skoda Octavia. Unbeknownst to him, the Lyons had a tracker on his car. He was pursued across Glasgow but was eventually rammed off the road, where a group of men jumped out their car and attacked Bonzo with knives, machetes and other weapons. He received serious wounds on his face, with first responders reports stating that they initially thought that he was shot in the face and that his nose was touching his ear. This would be in retaliation for the incident that took place earlier on in the year. January 2017. Ross Monaghan had just dropped his child off at St George's Primary School around 9 AM.
Bang, I thought it was an air rifle going off, and the kids were asking what happened, and I was just saying, just hurry up, because it was so loud, we were late. That was it, I don't know what it was. I seen the kids that were further round towards the school, they all kind of jumped, but then they kept walking, and then that's when I turned the other way, so I don't know. Everybody in here, you know everybody, so I'm really, really shocked that this has happened here. It's horrible. I hope none of the kids seen it.
A man wearing a blue padded jacket approached Monaghan and opened fire, striking him in the shoulder. Fortunately, Ross survived, but moved to Spain in fear of his life, where he opened Monaghan's bar. The last notable hit of the 2010s was on Robert Daniel, a nephew of the late Jaime Daniel, who was shot in the arm after being ambushed at his home in Honeywell Drive Steps in Glasgow. Robert was given numerous threat to life warnings and disruption notices, to which he ignored. The story doesn't stop there. With Stephen Bonzo Daniel now in control, the gang's activities have not died out. After a botched cocaine deal worth £500,000 with up-and-comer Ross Miami McGill, ex-Union Bears boss, the gangland feud has turned into mayhem, with all businesses and people associated with the Daniels targeted in firebombs, shootings, knife and machete attacks. The Daniels and Lyons/McGill factions are stuck in a tit-for-tat war until the Daniels struck back in a bold and shocking move. May 31st, 2025, Costa del Sol. Eddie Lyons Jr. and lifelong friend Ross Monaghan, who was acquitted of the Kevin Gerbil Carroll murder in 2012, were standing outside of Monaghan's, a bar owned by Ross, after the Champions League final. A dark vehicle pulled up in front of the bar, a masked gunman leaped out and opened fire instantly. Eddie Lyons Jr. was shot in the chest and abdomen, where he died instantly, and Monaghan was shot in the chest. Reportedly, the gun had jammed, which allowed Monaghan to try and escape through the pub, where he was chased and finished off. Both men died at the scene. This is the story so far. War for decades with no end in sight.